Chapter 119. Oh, Magic University. How I missed thee. Once I was done discussing matters with everyone, at least for the time being, I went out to visit my oh-so-dearly missed alma mater, the Magic University. By sneaking in, of course. Good evening. Bah, just my luck. I'm pretty damn busy, you know. What do you want? Irene, although sounding like that, still let me into her office. Besides, do you have any idea what time it is? You can count on me. The time is 3 o'clock 15 minutes, 27 seconds, 28:29 dash. That was a rhetorical question. Ha ha ha. So, what happened to your arcane energy, ma'am? Quite different from before, isn't it? I knew you'd notice. Yeah, no surprises there. For one, the sheer volume of her energy was far greater than what she'd had the last time I'd seen her. Moreover, the balance of its distribution. Oh yeah, for you did mention that Irene had gone to Regalia recently. The royal capital, aha, I see. Let's mess with her a bit. How was your trip to the east? Nice guy, wasn't he? You could tell. Yes, just now. Answering her with a broad grin. My face was met with a stinging impact not a moment later. That hurt. Get used to it. That was for your mentor. Some philosopher that guy is. Gah. I'm getting annoyed just from recalling him. Seeing Irene puff up with annoyance as she folded her arms, and in turn reminded of my past self, I cracked a wry smile. What were you trying to pull? Ahaha, nothing at all. So? How much training with Tus did you manage to get in? Quite a lot, actually. At first it was all physical training, but halfway through we started duking it out, until we were both out of MP. What? Seriously? It took me a whole year to get to do that. So that was what you'd talked about before. Figures, Irene said, casually sneaking in her usual brand of boasting in her tone. Damn it, don't tell me she'd managed to get some hits in as well. It had taken me almost the whole 2 years there to get up to that level. No way, she couldn't have. This is Irene we're talking about. Yeah, it's definitely possible. Pochi did say at one point that I've got good eyes when it comes to observing other people. Not so much for evaluating myself, but I digress. Point is, if that's what I thought, then I'm sure it was right. Feeling an unidentifiable mix of emotions, I heaved a deep sigh. Irene, on the other hand, sat down and put on a stern face as she looked at me. Whatever is going on now? It's been a while since I'd last felt this way. Oh, I bet it has. And why is she glaring at me so hard? Are you angry or something? Oh, you bet I am. She's definitely irritated. Gonna explode any second now. Enough with the nonsense. Just get down to business, and be on your way. What? Didn't you say that I needed to talk more nicely? I don't even remember saying that anymore. Look, you're here to talk about idea and emitters, right? Well, yes. That's exactly it. I swear, you're such a handful to deal with. For a second there, I wondered if Irene was actually pretty nice despite how aggressive she came off as. Oh, looks like she's finally stopped fuming. Good. Still, I see she's having quite a hard time keeping her feet on the floor. Would have been so much easier if she'd only gotten herself a low chair. Anyway, it's nothing complicated. Us 6 archmages do need to investigate past students' profiles sometimes, so we're authorized to enter the archives for those important documents and the like. I only tampered with their contract papers a bit. I see. But aren't you under the contract's effects as well? How did you even pull it off dash? Oh, come to think of it, I don't think I've ever told you about that. Just think it over, will you? You do know what year this is, right? It's year 94, why? The Magic University didn't have this sort of contract when you were here 5,000 years ago, did it? Did you even know when it started being a thing? Wait, are you saying that it's been introduced only recently? Irene heaved a sigh, especially emphasizing her exasperation with it. It's like she was tired of me not being entirely on the same page as her. What did I even do this time? Only recently, yeah, right. But unless you're some random fool who's lived for 5,000 years, 5,000 days can be quite a long time. Irene was ranting on so hard, I could practically see her spit fly. I see that she's quite jealous of those who had taken the drop of eternity, especially when she'd gotten to meet yet another one of the namely Tus. So 5,000 days, huh? That means about 14 years ago? Right. And do you know how old I am? Wait, you don't have to answer that. You never told me, so I wouldn't know that, would I? Fine then. So here's the story. The previous war demon emperor, Sagan, passed away 15 years ago. Vaz, even though he was a lineal descendant of Sagans, was still far too young at the time. The nation was in for a large-scale rebuilding at the time, so things would get real hairy if a civil war was to break out. Sagan, despite ruling into his elderly years, had been that important of a pillar that held the nation together, you see. So to make sure that no more forces of opposition arise, the contract was created. The one who did it was Ishtar of the Black, who was quite a distinguished member of the Six Braves back then. War Demon Emperor Sagan, Tsar's former master. As I'd thought, he'd been quite an important figure in the nation's history. Back when Tsar had brought it up, I'd talked to the serpent a bit more afterwards, and he'd told me that Sagan was quite a wise man. I'd like to meet the guy at least once, honestly. I'd never thought you would remember me, sir, with me being here for less than a year. I don't know whether you are the kind to act humble or simply a fool, but I must remind you that you did have that incident to your name. My nerves haven't gone dull just yet, I'll have you know. Apparently so. Seriously, I think it's supposed to be quite rare for a headmaster to be walking around the school at this hour. Still, the way this conversation is going, it reminds me of Warren, somehow. It's nasty. Like I'll still be messed with even if I play my cards right. Surely you aren't surprised to see me alive, sir? I am surprised. Just by how much you have changed. He was referring to my body, I assume. But why would he not be surprised by my presence? What with how I wasn't even supposed to be here at all? I see you're the latter kind. The town security is clearly aware of your survival, mind you. Have you ever stopped to count how many quests you have taken over the past 2 months? Only the most foolish of fools would not realize that something was wrong. I see. Then why didn't the security guards go to get me at my place again? It's more convenient to let you stay dead. That's all. Make the wrong moves, and the people would know that your suicide merely ended in your escape. He had a point there. If word got out, the town security would find itself under pressure from the nation. Makes sense that they'd try and avoid that. Now, I believe I've given you adequate answers. How about you tell me your story? With how sharp his glare was, I'd think he was trying to stab me with it. It seemed that he was suspicious of something. Could it be about the things I'd just told Irene? I'll just pretend to misinterpret his point, and then go from there. Nothing special, sir. I swear I'm not plotting anything. This place just happened to be in the way of my early morning walk. Paid a visit to Archmage Irene's office, have you? He knew that too? Wait, no, chances are he was just bluffing. Let's see if I can misdirect him. Well, I used to sometimes, but that doesn't mean I went there today, sir. Oh, then whatever were you even here for? All right, he took the bait. Turns out he'd actually been bluffing. Close call for me there. And now is a good time to change the subject. Let's end it by sprinkling some truths here and there while I make my escape. One of my pupils had started her school year yesterday, sir. So I thought I'd greet her one last time before she moved on to a long boarding school life. And stuff. One of your pupils. I see. I'll remember that. What is her name? Oh, that I'd rather not say, sir. I'd hate for her to receive unfair treatment in either way. Fair enough. Are you sure that is all? But of course. Although the look in his eyes didn't change that much, it seemed that he was inclined to understand what I'd said. Still got that pressure about him though. Scary. If I was still as strong as I'd been when I'd first left my cave, I probably would have run away with my tail between my legs. I do still want to run away just about now though. Back to my room. Throw my head on that Pochi pillow. Don't even care how much Pochi will jeer at me. I just want to do it. Then leave. And may you never return. Did I make myself clear? I'm afraid I can't make any promises, sir. I spy with my little eyes a foolish raccoon. Go away. Shoo. Good night, sir. I could feel his keen eyes constantly on me, until I was on the other side of the wall. This was the first time I'd ever been remotely close to the Magic University headmaster. But now I have some idea why he's such a big deal. And I must say, that was scary as all hell. Chapter 120. Oh, my students, how far you have come. 40 past 7 in the afternoon, third day of the fourth month, 94th year of the war demon calendar. In front of me was my familiar, yawning as she idled around. And behind me were my students, Lena and Tifa, whispering to each other. Accompanying them was Tarawo, the latter's familiar. Say, Tifa, I've heard that you've slept on Sir Asley's bed. Is that true? I couldn't turn around to look, but her face was probably locked in a smile. Yeah, felt super good, you know. So Fluffy smells nice too. Her voice sounded likely, but she was probably expressionless while saying that. Tarawo rushed to my side, seemingly having had enough of the atmosphere over there. He looked up at me with pleading eyes, and with a clear "help me" written on his face. Sorry, I don't think that's gonna happen, little guy. Just look at Pochi. She's long given up and is now just walking around, you know? There's no way I can deal with the situation by myself. Blazer had remarked how I got along so well with my students back when he'd first seen them together. But I suppose them deceiving even him was also another improvement they'd achieved. I'd only thought that I should teach them again. What with there being some things Lena had yet to fully master, and me wanting to evaluate Tifa's current abilities. Nothing more to it. But now I realized I really should have pushed to arrange their schedules so that they were on different days. Pochasley Agency, 8 o'clock in the afternoon, second day of the fourth month, 94th year of the war demon calendar. Tomorrow? Yeah, thought I'd open up some magic classes again. Do you have some free time after school, Lena? Don't think she does, Asley. Lena just told me she's in for some busy work tomorrow. Mana said while she was sorting up the dishes to our sides in the dining room. Maybe I'll just do that other thing tomorrow instead then. With that in consideration, I got up to leave, but was preemptively stopped by Lena as she stood up before me. I'll make it. And maybe we should do it some other day. I'll make it. Alright then. Now I'm hearing a burst of laughter coming from the kitchen. Mana, Betty and Itsuki. Damn it. They're really enjoying this. I'll make sure to be there as well. The voice that came from behind Lena resembled the voice that had told Tarawo, the dog currently lazing around in the corner of my eye, to shut up the previous day. Lena turned around in a snap. I stood up and saw Tifa there, standing in an arms-crossed pose like a certain archmage I'd visited earlier today. Tifa. I mean, Sir Asley is teaching magic again, right? Of course I'm in. Tifa. Maybe it's better that you wait another day, you know? But why not now? Ouch, that stings. I ought to be used to it at this point, but I just can't help but give in to those innocent, delicate, feminine pleading eyes. And Lena being Lena, she alternated her view between me and Tifa. When I turned to her, I saw that she had a "you're not going to let her, right?" written all over her face. And behind me, Tifa was staring at the back of my head. I don't even want to imagine the look on her face. Chances are her stare is even more intense than what I saw from Tangolin. Zemel. Nothing puts a man to a test more than a woman. What with MC not building harem, but being challenged. Why is it getting so close to real problems? But then I heard a faint throat-clearing cough, arriving like a rescue boat. All three of us turned to where it had come from, which happened to be the dining table, where Ryan and Zar were sitting in, both sipping tea. Sir Asley, could you please look after both of them for me? Both Lena and Tifa are already your students, so this would be a good opportunity for them to know each other's abilities, yes? Needless to say, the words of those two were practically the deciding factor here. Lena wouldn't say no to Ryan, and I definitely don't want to unnecessarily go against Ryan and Zar's wishes. Alright then. Hearing me say that, Tifa clenched her fists, while Lena cast her eyes down, looking a little sad. I know she'd said she would make it, but I'd never expected Lena to clear up her student council president work and arrive here so early. I'd remembered this only because Mana had mentioned it, but today, the third day of the fourth month, was the annual refiling of the black and white chain contracts. Although the number of currently enrolled students isn't that high, the process did involve a thorough check of every individual sheet, on top of having Irene double-check them, which ultimately made it painfully tedious and time-consuming. Now hold up a minute. Could Lena have pushed the whole job over to Irene instead? No, considering her personality, that was most unlikely. Did she find a different way to be done with it, then? Warren might have pulled it off, sure, but Lena, I wonder if she could. Is this the place? When we arrived at the vacant lot to the west of Bylania, the time was 7 o'clock in the afternoon. Tifa asked for confirmation, as she'd never been here, whereas Lena and I had already had a sparring match here once before. It was already dark out, but I could turn it bright as day easily enough with some light source spells. Since this was Tifa's first time seeing the split invocation in action, she was understandably quite surprised. Pochi, if you smell anything dangerous, let us know right away. Yes, sir. Now Tarawo, please keep watch on the other side. This is for my master's safety. Very well. Turns out Pochi and Tarawo aren't at odds with each other. That was unexpected. Them being fellow dogs might have helped, come to think of it. But I would guess it was mostly because Pochi was keeping herself polite. He did come off as quite bothersome in parts, after all. So I definitely was thankful for Pochi not taking it the bad way. So what do we do now, Sir Asley? Yes, I think it's about time you told us. You've refused to tell me last time I asked, so? For today, let's see. I plan not to hold a magic class, but a magecraft class. Ahaha, we're ready when you are, teacher. Teacher, huh? Now that takes me back. The two of them seemed to also feel nostalgic from how I was speaking. Now this really feels like we've gone 3 years back in time. Rise storeroom. Set this table here and nice. Lena, list out all the magecraft you can use on this paper, all right? In the meantime, I'll be teaching magecraft to Tifa. Huh? What? Lena and Tifa turned to look at each other surprised. I couldn't figure out why they would be. Did I just mess something up? Already? As if to get the clock ticking again, Tifa started drawing a circle. Hey, isn't that formula the dash? Arise storeroom. Wait, the storeroom. Tifa, how do you know that spell? Tifa, having taken out books and other documents out of her storeroom, and put them on the table, looked me and walked past Lena, as we were both bewildered by what she had just shown us. If it just me, or have I seen all these stuff from somewhere before? Have you forgotten, teacher? It was in the homework. You know, the stuff you left behind? Huh. Perhaps having heard my surprise, Pochi came running back to where I was. Is something the matter, master? This. It seemed that Lena wanted to explain the situation to Pochi, but didn't know how to go about it. But of course she wouldn't know. Not even Pochi and I. Now this takes me back. Look, master. The documents you threw away back at Falltown. Now I remember doing that, yeah. Figured I'd clean up my storeroom, you know, and all this stuff was bogging it down. But wait, why would they be with her? I thought it'd be a waste to just trash them. So I sorted them up real good, and put them in that old house. Oh, I see. So, Tifa, what about that Magic for Beginners book that I left on the table? Once I asked, Tifa promptly pulled it out of her storeroom and showed it to me. You mean this? Yes, that's it. Seeming to realize what I'd meant by the homework, Tifa let out an exasperated groan. I was done with it in just 2 months. Then I had a lot of trouble understanding the rest of the documents, but I did get started on them just 1 month after that. 1 month. 1 month. This time, Pochi and I turned to look at each other. To reiterate, the only homework I'd left behind was that beginner-level textbook, but she'd ended up studying my old books and research materials as well. Right, the documents did contain the storeroom formula and rough drafts of quite a lot of my experimental spells and crafts, which means you can already use magecraft, Tifa? Rise quadra boundary. Tifa, casually invoking the magecraft, fired it off at Tarawo. Man, this reminds me of how Pochi and I used to play back in the old days. How did I do, teacher? Tifa glanced back at me, while Tarawo pleaded for help in the distance. Man, this really reminds me of how Pochi and I used to play back in the old days. Chapter 121. Oh, my students, how far you have come too. GUH go, ho dash. Can't move. Tarawo, body rendered immovable within the quadra boundary, tried every way he could to escape, but I wasn't quite sure whether his arcane energy level was enough to deal with it. I will never live this down. You hear me? Lena and Pochi were speechless, not only by the surprise from seeing the Magecraft's invocation, but even more so by the fact that it had been used on Tarawo. Lena, her face indicating a slight change of mood, held her hands forward, in Tarawo's direction. Yeah, then she let loose a fairly hefty burst of arcane energy. It flew to where Tarawo was. Oh, I see, it was for blowing apart the Quadra Boundaries stakes. Tarawo's face cramped up, scared out of his mind by the incoming energy blast. But not even a second later, the boundary disappeared, setting him free. Oh, that was quite impressive, Lena. Come, I grant you permission to carry me. Don't be shy now. Lena heaved a sigh of relief, then stepped forward, not toward Tarawo, but to Tifa, with quite an angry look on her face. What's wrong with you, Tifa? Tarawo hasn't done anything wrong. Well, rather than angered, Lena is looking pretty cute and childish here. What with her not being the kind to scold other people much. Tifa doesn't seem to be used to taking a scolding, either. Just look how she's twitching right up, her eyes shut tight. Remember, your familiar is your most important partner. His life depends on you. That's right. And now Pochi's riding on the momentum. Great. You really should keep your mouth shut for now, doggo. But look at you, using Tarawo like he's a tool. You have to consider his feelings, too. Speaking from experience, I wholeheartedly agree. You can't keep doing this forever. Just think of his mental health. You heard her, Master. Oh, why'd Pochi turn on me all of a sudden? I know there are mages who control their familiars by force, but Tifa, you mustn't do that. Even though Lena's eyes were back to their usual, gentle look, Tifa still kept her eyes closed. Oh, now they're open. I am only doing it the way Sir Asley taught me. Huh. Lena and I were taken aback, while the two familiars turned to look at me confused. I mean, what? I don't even know what she's talking about. Seriously, Master, what in the world did you teach her? Asley, I'd never thought you were plotting to assassinate me. Wait. Tifa, when did I even teach you something remotely close to that? Here. Tifa, keeping her voice low, pointed at a certain book on the table. That's one of my research journals. And what's the deal with that, Master? Considering the situation, it can only be a diary that he doesn't want to open up ever again. That I am sure of. Sir Asley. Although this was technically class time, Lena called out my name with quite a prominent berating tone. She proceeded to open the book. Then the familiars, both Pochi and Tarawo, heaved a sigh and declared, "We must get to the bottom of this. Yes, once and for all. Ah, hey, stop it." And there they go, snatching the book for themselves. They proceeded to flip through the pages, with Lena looking at it from above as they went. Now I remember somehow this research journal and the events it chronicled. If memory serves, 15th day of the 10th month, Pochi was annoying today, as with any other day. Ah, so annoying. So very annoying. For breakfast, honey. Lunch, honey. Snack time, honey. Dinner, honey. Late night snack, honey. Just look at her. Look at her smile. Can't she see how I'm already so sick and tired of it? It's delicious, she said, sure, but only for the first bite. Good God, she's annoying. Come the second bite. Well, I thought all hell was about to break loose. She's trying to kill me. There's no doubt in my mind. One of these days. I'll get my payback one of these days. 18th day of the 10th month, Pochi was annoying today, as with any other day. Ah, so annoying. So very annoying. She'd said she wanted to help me with this important research. Pretty unexpected. So I'd asked her to transcribe some text. I went to check her work after a while, and saw that she'd stamped the text with her paw prints on the approximate interval of 3 words. Since when was this a government office? How's this? Artistic, isn't it? She said as I burned those ruined parchment sheets away. Good God, she's annoying. I couldn't even read them properly, for God's sake. She's trying to destroy my research efforts. There's no doubt in my mind. One of these days. I'll get my payback one of these days. 19th day of the 10th month. 1 o'clock in the morning. Pochi was annoying today, as with any other day. Ah, so annoying. So very annoying. She'd perform alchemy and created Vantablack paint, the blackest black there ever was, and proceeded to splash it all over the room. I'd thought she would clean it up afterwards, but instead she'd jumped into the sea of paint, turning herself completely into a black dog. In that state, she was the dreadful kind of beast that I'd never ever wished to see at night. "This is so fun," she said. But did she even realize that she'd soaked my precious research black as well? Good God, she's annoying. The main dungeon was now in jet black. She's the kind of familiar that exists to hinder my progress in every way possible. There's no doubt in my mind. One of these days. Yeah, no, I will get my payback. Definitely will. 19th day of the 10th month, 16th o'clock in the afternoon. Okay, technically 4 o'clock in the morning. Pochi was annoying today, as with any other day. So annoying. So very annoying. The time has come. Now the resident black dog shall know what's coming to her when she crosses me. Pochi's belly inflated and deflated in rhythm with every breath she took. "I can't eat another bite," she said. "But she'll be running on empty by the time she wakes up. She always is. Good God, she's annoying. First of all, I'll make it so that Pochi shuts up for some time. All I need to do is cover her mouth. Then I can kiss goodbye to the noisy cave-in days of exclusively honey diet. This is definitely the way. Ha. Payback has been served. 20th day of the 10th month, I woke up early in the morning to my familiar's pain groans. With teary eyes, she glared at me, then scratched me. Ouch dash. That hurt like hell, damn it. What the hell are you doing? HNGGGG dash. She probably would say. I should be the one asking that if she could. But well, she obviously couldn't. I won't waste my breath trying to make her understand either. Just give her a day to think it over. And she's bound to mend her ways from here on out. Disciplinary measures are needed from time to time. This is definitely the way. Payback. Disciplinary action has been served. Yeah, this was a thing. If I remembered correctly, this was not long after Pochi had become my familiar. So, it should be 700 or 800 years by now. So yeah, disciplinary measures. Tifa said in a show-offish tone. Pochi, reminded of everything that had happened, blocked her eyes with her front paws out of embarrassment. That was, so to speak, the dark age of the history between me and her. Well, Pochi seems to still be in that dark age though, considering what she's experiencing right now. Lena pressed her own forehead, looking quite troubled. Having heard what she'd heard, I suppose it would be hard to come up with a reply. But then Lena heaved another sigh. Looks like she's gotten her thoughts together now. Don't you get it, Tifa? Sir Asley and Pochi are this way because of how they trust each other. Whether it's Pochi or Sir Asley who gets out of line, they are always ready to forgive each other. That's how much they get along. But the same cannot be said about how you're acting, don't you think? All you did was abuse the power you have. Seeing Tifa keep silent, Lena continued. They may act like that, but they don't mean harm. That much is clear to anyone who knows them. That's why everyone can laugh along with their antics. But look at Tarawo. He actually resents you for what you did. Do you understand, Tifa? I don't know. Lena raised an eyebrow. Tifa startled Tarawo with how firmly she held her ground. Is this escalating into an actual fight? That's been a while. They used to occasionally get into arguments back in my old magic classes. Most felt quite similar to the one going on right now too, now that I think about it. How do you expect me to know? I'm just doing it my way. You can't just walk up and criticize how I do things. The way Tifa's talking now, she used to do that too. Especially when she was being careful with her stance around Lena. Oh really? Then why did you just say that you were doing it the way Sir Asley taught you? On the other hand, Lena was working at it with logic and reason, albeit in a passive-aggressive manner. Shut up. I won't let myself be pushed around by you anymore. Tifa was way past her boiling point. As if I'll lose that easily. I'm still way ahead of you. Lena, seeing no other choice, flicked on her preaching mode in full force. They're raring to go at it any second now, aren't they? Are you sure you don't need to stop them, Master? Well, I did plan to start things off with a sparring match, so it should be fine. I see. No worries then. What a powerful clash of arcane energy. I must get away as far as possible. True. The pressure of the situation now might be too much for Lil Tarawo. Tarawo, get over here. Why? Arai's house. Come on out, Balad. My time to shine. The four-winged dragon appeared before Tarawo's eyes. Tifa was surprised for a moment, but still showed no sign of backing down. She's calling you Tarawo. Okay, now Pochi's just being ruthless for the sake of it. I mean, telling him to just go against Balad. In different circumstances, that's practically telling him to go die. I said get over here, Tarawo. Again, she's calling you Tarawo. Chapter 122. Oh, my students, how far you have come. 3. So, you use magic to keep your familiar in a compressed space. Who's the one mistreating her familiar now, huh? Balad's size makes it hard for her to stay out. And besides, she did agree to this. Now looks like Tarawo is having difficulties standing in front of Balad. I wonder what's wrong. Tisiak, hey, hurry it up. Why, you called for me? Do you see any other Tarawo around here? Tarawo turned to look at us again. Are you not going to step in? Aren't you the only one capable of preventing this situation from escalating further? You're not going to stop them. Such was written all over Tarawo's face. But I put on the heart of a demon, just this once, and ignored his pleas. Both Tifa and Tarawo were still in the learning stage. Stopping this match, would be equal to stopping an opportunity for growth. That is what I believe. Ooh, looks like we arrived at a great time. Bruce, didn't know you were coming here as well. I'm here too. Bruce arrived with Lala, riding on his shoulders. Hey, looks like you two are getting along real good lately. Ha ha ha, oh Lala's dangerously fast and all. But she's totally dull and pretty unreliable in a real fight, you see. I've been teaching her a thing or two. Bruce's teaching is kinda crude, but it's pretty nice. She's a mage, remember. Her movements are incredible by that standard. In contrast to our good-natured banter, Tarawo looked quite downhearted as he dragged his heels toward Tifa, giving up on everything. Hey Asley, gotta feel a bit sorry for Tarawo, yeah? Lala pointed at Tarawo, as if to question whether I should stop the fight. Bruce looked up and proceeded to answer her. If they were adults, Asley probably would have stopped them, but he's letting them learn from experience, so that they'd know to stop themselves in the future. By not stopping them today, he's stopping them from tomorrow on. Oh, am I supposed to understand that? Ha 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 ha, well maybe not. Oh, looks like they're getting started. As Bruce had indicated, Lena was now ready to fight, her hand tightening its grip on her staff. Tarawo, on the other hand, still hasn't reached Tifa. He must be extremely reluctant, which was perfectly understandable. I won't use swift magic, so don't worry, Tifa. Oh, you won't be talking big like that for long. And so the battle commenced. It seemed that Tifa was starting out as the aggressive side, with Lena being on full defensive. Balad stayed put with her arms crossed, staring down Tarawo. The sheer pressure she exerted seemed to have affected Tifa as well, however. Now then, let's see how fast Tifa's air tracing is, The hexagram pattern, so a craft circle. The drawing was fast for sure. But opening the fight with magecraft was strategically questionable. Rise. Transient blades. Her craft circle unleashed countless slash attacks. That's an exactly by the formula magecraft. I don't exactly recall. Did those old books not contain derivative magecraft material? Or was it because of Tifa's lacking improvisation skills that she wasn't coding in altered formulas? Well, I suppose I could think that over some time later. Rise. Earth control. Lena's drawing was quite fast. Considering that this was an elementary-leveled spell, this speed could be her at nearly fastest. Earth control was a favorite of high-leveled mages, good choice. Still got some room for improvement though. Called it. Rise parasitic control. Oh, so she's been doing one-handed tracing in anticipation of her main attack being guarded. Pulled that off fairly quickly too. Could it be that both of them were actually as fast as the other? Stopped by the dirt wall. The light slashes lost their momentum. But that didn't mean they were stopped completely. The remaining streaks of light darted their way through toward Lena. Lena, watch out. Who are you worrying about, doggo? My lil sister taught her martial arts, remember? Yeah, this is Lena we're talking about. She'll get through this, no problem. The tip of Lena's staff, infused with arcane energy, unleashed a sound blast. The blades that had slipped through the wall were repelled, some destroyed and others reflected. Haha, look at her go. She might even be good enough to make it to rank A as a warrior. Huh? Oh, for sure. She's already started learning how to fight with swords, you know? Really? Yeah. Started with Betty a bit, before you had to leave for the rank-up evaluation. Always healed up the scratches on her face no matter how much MP she had to use up. Man, I wonder who she's doing that for? Ha 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 ha. Oh yes, I wonder who? Oh ho ho. Bruce and Pochi looked my way, both with greatly irritating looks on their faces. And then there was Lala, seeming to have figured me out despite looking clueless as ever. Damn it. Now her face is turning a bit red. Now back to the fight. Tifa leapt backwards to dodge the attack that had been reflected back to her. Oh, Tifa's movements looked fairly good, albeit still clumsy. By warrior standards, I'd say she was on par with D-ranked adventurers. Which reminds me, what level was she on now? Seeing that Pochi's attention has shifted back to the match, I took the opportunity to invoke my appraisal glasses. Name, Tifa titles, pupil, excellent. Mage, rank D, top student LV, 41 HP, 296 MP, 600 EXP, 130,019 special skills. Attack magic, advanced support magic, intermediate recovery magic elementary. I was reminded once again that the concepts of genius and talent were a thing in this world. Her attack magic mastery was quite remarkable. Her mastery of support and recovery magic was perfectly in line with her level, but she was sure to have a great abundance of combat spells at her disposal. But then again, she was bound to have difficulties rising above the advanced level of mastery exactly because of this discrepancy. To achieve that, especially at this young age, she would not only need to put in a great deal of effort, but also possess a suitable mindset. Her physical strength also seemed lacking, but her age might be a factor here. She still had quite a lot of time to grow up, after all, so she ought to be patient and plan for long-term results. Now then, I might as well look at how much Lena has improved so far too. Name, Lena titles, Little Sister Swordsman Mage, Magic Classroom Graduate, Rank A, Student Council President, The Swift, The Silent Witch LV, 63 HP, 991 MP, 1,610 EXP, 441,039 special skills. Attack magic, advanced support magic, advanced recovery magic, skilled, Tempest light body. Ha, she's actually not so different from Warren's level in his corresponding time frame. The student council president title sure was a big deal. Moreover, Betty's teachings definitely were showing solid results here. All things considered, Lena's gonna win this by experience alone. She may be taking a defensive stance now, but if she wanted to, she could take Tifa down whenever she wanted. Lena wasn't necessarily holding back. Surely she wanted to measure how much stronger Tifa has become as well. But more importantly, I ended up being quite worried about what was going on with the rest of the combatants. Oversized lizard, you dare you laze around before me? And that condescending look in your eyes. Very brave of you to disrespect me. Oh no, Chihuahua. It is very brave of you to directly confront a dragon like that. Well, I'm sure he's being completely serious, but Balad probably wouldn't take that as anything more than a puppy barking at her. I mean, that description is exactly what's happening too, so know that I am a Garm, a king wolf. Your attitude in my presence is punishable by death. Come to think about it, I'm pretty sure he's been saying that before too. When it came to Garm the king wolf, one would think of the dangerous A-ranked monster, which was arguably fit for the S rank, depending on the individual. I wouldn't expect this Chihuahua to be one of them though. Name, Tarawo titles, The Cursed King Wolf, Unwavering Pride, Unranked Anomaly, Weakest Familiar LV, 10 HP, 10 MP, 10 EXP, 9,999,999 special skills. Howl Bark, what in the blazes? His level wasn't matching up with his experience points, not to mention his physical strength and arcane energy being far too low even for this level. And his titles, I'd never seen any of them. I had my attention on the cursed title in particular. How in the world did he even get that? Fwahahaha. I see you're too intimidated by my threat to even take a step forward. Step aside. Leave my sight this instant or else. Balad, either bored or busted a vein at this point, unfolded her arms and breathed in. A breath attack. No, I'm sure that by now Balad is smart enough to not use lethal force. Humph. Don't care. Gah. She blew him away with a shot of compressed air. Tawaro just kept rolling on the ground, looking like a child's rubber ball. Oh, he stopped. Go a dash. Oh, Earth, why must you send such impact running through my body? Such pain biting into my bones. Hahaha. I never knew you hated me so. So it hurts. That's right. I mean, oh. A curse, huh? I ought to look deeper into it. Chapter 123. Oh, my students, how far you have come for. Tifa was now out of breath. Her MP was about to run out, any second now. Lena, on the other hand, was perfectly calm as she fended off Tifa attacks. Yeah, it's more or less a wrap at this point. Ugh, from my observation of Tifa's moves, I could tell what she has been trying to do, but her output wasn't following along with her thoughts. That was what made it so easy for her opponent, in this case being Lena, to read her actions. I could tell that her plans were theoretically effective. She would go on to become quite a fearsome mage, if she were able to act out the things she had been playing in her head, conversely speaking. As for Lena, her fighting style said a lot about her character. Calm and calculating, reading, prediction and preparation. She was strategically flexible, and reacted well to formulaic battles. But that meant she likely would be vulnerable to those with tricky or unconventional approaches. All right, for now, I suppose those are the challenges they ought to tackle. Okay, I'ma go stop them now. Bruce stood up and walked slowly toward the ongoing battle. Nice timing on his part as always. It was indeed about time that the match was called off. Not to mention that the both of them still weren't strong enough to take Bruce on. That, and the guy has always been a great mediator. Pochi. Yes, sir, I have to go stop the fight over there, right? Yeah, I'm counting on you. Balad, and accursed King Wolfgarm, huh? NGH dash. Pochi, how dare you interfere with our battle? I suppose I'm left with no other choice. Victory is yours, but just this once, Balad. Pochi only stood between them, though. If the information I'd seen with the appraisal glasses was true, then he'd been cursed into looking like that. But his personality was a different story. Looks like things are going fine on Bruce's side as well. The time now should be around 7 in the afternoon. Lena has now regained composure, while Tifa was feeling disgruntled. This too was quite a nostalgic scene. Bruce and Pochi were now keeping watch on the area while also training Lala. Not that they needed to, though, what with Balad over there being more than enough to ward off all the monsters. Now you too, I've got an approximate measure of your abilities. Next, please list out all the magecraft you can use on these papers. And so this unconventional magic class extended into the night. But that's fine. This always happened back in Falltown as well. Until they were done, I might as well deal with this. Hey, Tarawo. What is it, Asley? Being too friendly too soon, don't you think? Yeah, sorry. Look, I'd hate to interrupt you now, but come here for a second. I called Tarawo over while keeping my voice down, then led him a fair distance away from the rest before sitting down. Tarawo followed suit, sitting down beside me. Seemed to be quite particular about the way he sat too. Dignified eyes gazing into the distance. Legs perfectly aligned and stretched. Mouth shut tight, showing no fangs. No matter how I looked, that's a chihuahua. Now what do you want? If you wanted to brush my fur, couldn't you have done it just fine back there? What were you doing before you became Tifa's familiar? That was what you were curious about. Frankly, I don't even want to think about it ever again. Just try to. Then promise me that you would add a piece of high-quality chicken breast meat to my meal tonight. Now that's quite a cheap asking price. Sure thing. Very well. Prior to becoming Tifa's familiar, I have served under another master. He tricked me and initiated the contract without my knowledge. You were in your true form back then. But of course, I have lost my vast pool of arcane energy at that time, however. Perhaps the compelling force of the Lord and Retainer contract was too powerful. What about the time before you became the previous master's familiar? You still had your arcane energy? I did have it. After the contract was signed, my powers gradually thinned down, and even my body started to weaken. It took me a while to realize. I wonder what sort of contract could even bring down his statistics to that. Well, he did say that he was tricked, so how exactly were you tricked by him? NGH, that's complicated. It can't be that important, can it? Why don't we just skip that detail over? A greatly humiliating story, I reckon. It seemed like Garms were quite prideful creatures. How about another piece of chicken? Since you insisted so, I am left with no other choice. Listen well now, Dash. Cheap pride apparently. Damn that man. I get irritated just by recalling him. But perhaps I was partially at fault. What with me dropping everything and chowing down when he threw a hunk of salted and peppered meat in front of me. I wasn't paying attention, and ended up nodding to the questioning part of the Lord and Retainer contract's invocation. A few pieces of chicken probably would have done the trick. Anyways, now I get it. The Lord and Retainer contract had been initiated with an underhanded method. By manipulating instinctual greed. That was the key factor to the drop of his abilities. So what about your body? This is probably the result of the contract that Tifa has forced on me. Tifa did. I started to ask, but Teruo promptly shut his mouth tight. Then he glanced over at me, hinting at something he's wanted to say. Ah, so that what you're playing at? You clever little. Fine, another piece. Fwahahaha. You have a good heart and chest, Asley. Whatever even compelled Teruo to praise my chest when he has something good to say about me? Back at the Thirsty Desert, my previous master has enforced one last standby order when the contract was voided, you see. Then I met Tifa and begrudgingly formed a new Lord and Retainer contract with her, under the condition that she would help me out of there. What's the specifics of that order? If I remember correctly, it was to find myself another master. Oh, so that's it, huh? Did you figure something out? Most of it, actually. Fixing that form of yours is going to be pretty difficult, though. What? The Lord and Retainer contract was a special magic spell that called upon one's instincts. It posed the symbolic question of, do you acknowledge your master? To the familiar candidate. That process had been ignored not only once but twice. The first time was when he had been tricked by his former master. The contract finalized by manipulation of greed. The second time was with Tifa. As dictated by the previous master's standby order, this unwilling Lord and Retainer contract wasn't even supposed to go through. But the order had been bypassed with a great desire for survival. By find another master. It meant he was supposed to fully recognize the new master-familiar relationship dynamics. The act of begrudgingly accepting his new master as means of survival was what had cursed him. Neither of those would have posed an issue if Teruo had his wits about him. But his personality, misfortune, and excessive pride had served to influence him otherwise. Looks like I'll need to think about it some more. Asley, can I return to my former form, my former powers? If so, how? Calm down. I could brew up some medicine to temporarily turn you back, but it would also make your power-changing curse stronger. The only way to dispel the curse is that you have to wholeheartedly acknowledge that Tifa is your master. I do. I acknowledge her. You can't just say you do. It doesn't work that way. But why? I don't understand. Why? You have to trust and understand your master. Always consider what she wants and needs. Take for example the fight with Balad just now. You should go to her without having to be called. That mindset will eventually lead to your arcane energy being released. But as things stand now, you're not even willing to help even when you're called over. Saying you acknowledge Tifa as your master, while acting like that won't do anything to get rid of your curse. Teruo was at his wit's end here. What I'd said might come off as harsh, but I wouldn't be able to get my point through Teruo's wall of pride otherwise. A long time was needed to build a relationship of mutual trust between any two entities. Teruo still had a long way to go until he and Tifa were on the same page. I'll be investigating the curse in more detail too. I'm counting on you, Teruo said in a barely audible whisper. Is something the matter, teacher? Tifa was standing behind us. I didn't even realize when she'd gotten here. I suppose I should have expected her. What with Teruo being so loud just now? Ah well, I was just talking with Teruo here about his arcane energy and former appearance. Be careful not to cause Sir Asley too much trouble. Got it? Tifa. like a witch out of children's picture books, gave Tarawo a cold, hard stare. But despite how she acted up front, perhaps she was in fact worried for Tarawo in her own way. Asley was the one who approached me on this topic. Just answer me. Did I make myself clear? Yes, ma'am. On second thought, perhaps they simply weren't on the same wavelength just yet. Chapter 124. Oh, my students, how far you have come, V. And here they are, 2 sheets of paper filled up as much as they could. 2 years ago, I had tried to teach Lena some magecraft via the parchment I'd passed to her. The distance line, as I like to call it. But in the end, Tifa still had a deeper understanding of the subject. I suppose that was to be expected from having access to heaps and heaps of my research materials. Then again, she hadn't just read it, but also understood that. It must have taken a great deal of effort to make all that knowledge practical. On the other hand, Lena was more knowledgeable when it came to magic. That served to balance things out in its own way. So I don't think there's anything to worry about the class's structure. Let's start with a review. Rise Quadra Boundary. I directed the magecraft at Pochi, for stakes of light surrounded her, forming a perimeter that restricted her movement. Lena and Tifa, being dedicated mages as they were, paid most of their attention to my hands. They especially focused on how velocity augment affected my circle drawing. Master, did you not listen to what Lena said earlier? You're being cruel. Now, aren't you able to destroy this level of boundary easily enough, Pochi? Of course I can. Ha. Once Pochi exerted a bit of force, the quadra boundary dispersed with a high-pitched plosive sound. The quadra boundary, in a practical environment, they are likely to be effective against monsters up to rank C. There are exceptions, of course, with one being floating gas form monsters, which are especially vulnerable to magic and magecraft attacks. You could use it to buy some time against the A-ranked elemental reapers. The magecraft's power increases linearly with each iteration, naturally, with hexaboundary effectively immobilizing enemy monsters up to rank B, and octaboundary up to rank A. The technically last iteration of it is what you two should aim for as an end goal. Rise. Decaboundary. I directed the magecraft at Pochi again. Pochi, having let her guard down, glared at me with an again! Exclamation written all over her face. Come on, don't look at me like that. Didn't we always do this back when we were in Falltown? The volume of information in it is incredible. And he drew the circle up so easily, Tifa said, her eyes wide open. Wow, Lena muttered, her breath almost long enough to be considered a sigh. Haha, I've got to act like a teacher from time to time in order to maintain my image, after all. Show them awesome stuff, get them motivated. While I thought that, Bruce walked up to me from behind. And as usual, he hit my buttocks. That hurt, Bruce. Stop with that creepy smile, man. You still keeping even bigger stuff to yourself, right? It's written all over your face, you know? Bruce declared, sounding smug as he was sure that he'd seen me through. Damn it, did my face really give him that idea? It wasn't supposed to be so obvious. I reached up to touch my face, prompting Pochi and Bruce to both crack a smile. Ahahaha. I can see it written right there, sir. Damn it, not you too. I was briefly heartbroken by how blunt my familiar was. Briefly because Lala shouted at me not a second later. Asley, over there. Over there. Lala pointed into the forest, calling my attention to what was in there. It seemed that monsters were approaching us. They weren't repulsed by the pressure of Ballad's arcane energy? Not from around here, perhaps? But if they originated around here, then they would have to be the undead. Oh, a shade. They're pretty rare around these parts. Bruce said as he stared into the distance. Turned out I'd guessed right. The shade, alternatively called the animated shadow, was a type of undead monster. Its entire body was pitch black, and although it technically had eyes, one would never be able to tell where they were. Other distinguishing features included its weakness to light, and its body not casting any shadow on other surfaces. Look, I'll stall it for ya, so show me the stuff as well, yeah? Bruce drew his blade and charged onward, while I put up a bitter smile and scratched the temples of my head. Oh, he just had to set a scene to get what he wants. I'll make sure to thank him real good sometime later. Bruce could easily take it down if he wanted to, But instead, he had Lala distract it while he himself messed around with it to buy time. His fighting flowed well despite being self-taught. As expected from a regular of the silver, Lena and Tifa's eyes were practically glued to their moves. Hello? Aren't you two supposed to be observing me? Once Lena noticed me, she chuckled, and then gestured me to do my thing. I don't know why, but I feel obligated to say sorry here. All right, check this out. The very best of the boundary magecraft. Rise a dash ba. Drawing this one up takes way too damn long. Still got plenty of room for improvement. Rise sancta boundary. The craft's circle suspended itself high up, illuminating the night sky with its dazzling light. In fact, it must be so bright that Bruce and Lala down below couldn't open their eyes. There we go. Bruce and Lala promptly broke away from the spot, while the shade gave chase, seeing it as an opening to strike. All within my calculations. Except, well, they already were caught. Unlike the other boundary crafts, one was able to move within the sancta boundary's perimeter. As usual, the only way for one to get out, aside from the caster disengaging the craft itself, was to force the wall open with one's own arcane energy. It was most likely to confine all monsters up to rank S, however. I would have used it more liberally, if not for the hefty consumption of arcane energy and circle drawing time. Wow, just wow. Really feelin' the magic here. And I'm a warrior, man. Ooh, sparkly sparkly. Lala's eyes sparkled as she observed the magecraft's invocation process. And so did Tifa's. As for Lena, I don't know if I should have expected this, but she was looking at me. Really, why? Then she turned snappingly away once Bruce turned around. So Asley? What now? Rise a rise. Gatling lightning. I drew up the spell, one that had enraged a heavenly beast once before, and wedged it into Sancta's boundary magecraft formula. The Gatling lightning was then unleashed inside the boundary's perimeter. The spell's bolts, having no place to go, zapped around within the perimeter, burning the shade down to a crisp. Whoa! Impressive! Two whispers, likely from Tifa and Tarawo, entered my ears. By the time all the sounds and magical lightning bolts within the perimeter disappeared, the unexpected enemy also vanished without a single trace. It's perfect. Lena was the one to make the last remark. Seems like she would be remembering this scene for quite a long time. As for how this magecraft came to be, it had been completed by Tus after I had gone to him to discuss its earlier form, which had been an old stalled invention of mine. I suppose the final result could be considered a collaboration. Right, Pochi? I turned to her, asking the question in my mind as if to reaffirm myself of my opinion, but was instead met with her glare. Huh, whatever made her look at me like that this time? Master, when will you let me go? I just realized the Deca boundary was still active, confining Pochi within it. Sorry, I forgot. I hurriedly disengaged the Deca boundary with a bolt of arcane energy. Once released, Pochi gave me a stern stare. Haha, I'll have to pamper her a bit sometime later. Man, that was awesome. Yeah, stupid awesome. In expressing her cheerful surprise, Lala imitated Bruce's manner of speaking. Always interesting to see how quickly her expression changed. I'd been noting how Lala was quite erratic when it came to emotional ups and downs. She'd regularly look bored out of her mind with half-sleepy eyes. But once something caught her attention, her eyes would spontaneously sparkle up full of hype. The peak of her expression would be when she was doing farm work. Well, that applied to Zar as well. Maybe I should teach her a thing or two as well. What with her also being a mage of considerable skill. All right. Lala, you want to try learning magecraft as well? Dash. Rendered speechless by sheer surprise, Lala stared at me. Then she proceeded to nod repeatedly. Oh, ain't she a precious little scarecrow? Whoa, she's nodding so quickly that I'm feeling the wind from up here. I'd never realized how much she wanted to learn it. Heck yeah, I'm so in. Lala clenched both her fists. She was so happy that she didn't even notice Tifa glaring at her. I wonder what compelled Tifa to glare at Lala like that. Anyways, that was how I took up the responsibility of teaching yet another student. I'll have to push myself harder than ever from now on. Chapter 125, Asley the Alchemist. 9:24 in the morning, 7th day of the 4th month, 94th year of the War Demon calendar. The Magecraft class commenced with Tifa and Lena, and the newly applied student Lala. A few days passed. Although I'd already known how talented Lala was as a mage, she had been exceptionally quick to master basic magecraft, and was now threatening to catch up to Tifa. By all accounts, she was what I would call a natural genius. At this time, Lena was 18, Tifa was 15, and Lala was 12. All were still young and talented, so while I was their teacher, I couldn't help but feel my face twitch from time to time. Why, oh why must such an equality exist in this world? Feeling Lala's momentum, Tifa and Lena pushed themselves to learn up to the Hexa boundary, determined not to be outdone. Tifa went to university during the day, then broke the dorm curfew to drop by the Asley agency. I think I'd heard something about Ryan and the others working toward renting themselves a house, too, and that Tifa would graduate from her dorm life as soon as that was settled. But until then, she'll have to live through the same sneak routine I'd once done. Tifa had no problem doing that by herself, but she had been mumbling about how Tarawo might get both of them ratted out, so Lena had considered ways to offer them assistance. Since Lena helping directly might lead to more arguments, she had recruited Anri and Claris to help with sneaking Tifa and Tarawo out. Thanks to that, Tifa had made herself 2 friends over the past few days. Those 2 have been happy to help out too, so I couldn't be more satisfied with how things played out. Lena being Lena, she had been entirely focused on learning magecraft, and for that, had been completing her non-school work routine tasks at an exceptionally increased speed. I had received the following comment from Irene. What did you do to her? She's been acting more and more like a student council president now. Yes, that was the exact quote. I do wish for Lena to not end up with Warren's personality though. Now, one would expect Lala, who didn't attend university, to have learned the most magecrafts so far, but that was not the case. The main reason was that she was so thorough with her farm work that she would never overlook even a single blade of unwanted grass. Once she was done patrolling the fields and wrapped up her work for each day, she would always arrive at around the same time Tifa did. Naturally, Lena was always the one to arrive last, which was understandable since she had other obligations in addition to school work. Perhaps considerate of that fact, the other 2 would refuse to get started until Lena arrived. To quote Lala, she wanted to wait for Lena. To quote Tifa, she thought it wouldn't be fair. It seemed that Tifa was still the same as she had been, at least in one way or another. As for me, since I was free during the daytime, at least for the time being, I had spent the past few days gathering and trading for materials, and also practiced the application methods of my arcane energy. All that, of course, had been for alchemy, and now, as I proceeded to do the thing, strange smoke poured out of my room through the seams, and Itsuki repeatedly knocked on my door from the other side. Sir Asley, excuse me, there's a lot of smoke so ack. Well, what's happening? Sir Asley, I know you're in there. You heard her. So what now, master? Just be quiet. I'm getting to the good part here. It's been a while since I've last seen you like this, hasn't it? So what are you mixing up today, sir? I'm getting things ready for the Pachibitan D. Come again. Like I said, the Pachibitan D. Air, what's that mean, sir? Nothing. I thought it'd sound nice and uplifting, that's all. So you're implying that my name sounds uplifting, sir? Shut up. Yeah, that's right, you're always noisy. So I thought about how you must be so full of energy. Yeah. Oh, I see. With Pochi cracking a grin to my side, I flipped the collar of my shirt in a vain attempt to feel some cool wind on my burning face. Now was the precious time I needed to spend carefully in preparation for my journey to the so-called place of my beginning. It seemed that Pochi now understood my goal in one way or another. Not the actual contents of my research, of course, but rather the understanding that I wasn't experimenting with or mixing up something strange. So what sorts of effects are you expecting from this Pachibitan D thing? I'm glad you asked, Pochi. Listen well. This is a power restoration medicine that fully tops up your stamina. Can't that already be done with recovery magic, though? She didn't quite get it just yet, so I added, no, it's not a recovery, but a literal power restoration. You know how humans like me sleep to recover our energy? I've made this medicine to get rid of the need for that. Works on you as well, of course. Pochi had passive energy recovery courtesy of the familiar contract, so that was fine and all. But I'd recently discovered that she could speed it up by sleeping. Thinking inversely, a portion of her physical exhaustion could very well be derived from her mental exhaustion as well. Should have been obvious, really. So if you drink the thing, you'll be able to keep working day and night without rest? Exactly. Isn't that supposed to be impossible, though? It'll put too much burden on your brain, for one. And the side effects? Well, I'm sure doing that will affect your physical health in some way. Nope, not with this stuff. Huh. I mean, look at me. Nothing wrong, right? I spread out my arms as if telling her to observe my body. Pochi, initially confused, gradually opened her mouth, transitioning to her usual angry state. I knew what was coming next, of course, so I promptly plugged my ears. Ah, Master, you tested it with yourself again. Why do you always do that? And here I am, always telling you how dangerous untested medicines are. For the love of God. Also, you've been using my belly as a pillow, haven't you? Ha 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 ha. Life is a series of challenges, Pochi dog. Now you're trying to trick me by saying something clever. Keep that up and I'll get angry, sir. Aren't you already, though? Although Pochi was insistent with how livid she was now, in the end she always would sigh it off and let me do whatever. Perhaps knowing that, and getting used to that happening, was what made me more prone to making rash decisions. I'd known that I shouldn't, but I'd gone and done it anyway. It felt as if I was more likely to do things I was told not to. I see. Humans sure are interesting. Better write that down in the Principles of a Philosopher here. Oh, there it is. Pochi just heaved a sigh. I swear, you're always such a handful. So how did you pull this off, sir? See, a human stamina, saying life force would probably make it easier to understand this concept, I guess. So, you know how life force and arcane energy are numerically quantified? You mean HP and MP, sir? I think you used to say something about it being a mechanism God built into mortal life when he created them? Well, no way to know that for sure, is there? Anyways, back on topic. Those numerical values actually match up with the degree of our fatigue. And how do you know that? See, at first I tried thinking up lots of formulas to see if the restoration could be done with magic, but none of them worked out well. Then I had the idea to change the approach to injecting the power restoration magic into my body first, then invoke it. Here, take this bottle, still tightly shut, right? Once Pochi received the bottle that I'd passed to her, she nudged it with her paw to make sure. Yes, it is. Why? When it's open, the spell in the liquid will eventually be invoked with a time-based activation formula. If it's inside you, then it's going to take effect on your whole body, restoring your energy. If it's not, then it's only going to work on external wounds. That's pretty much it. Huh, looks like you've made another impressive thing, sir. And I can see that you've already mass-produced it. What about the effect time? Hard to say. It's not like it gives you unlimited energy for a period of time, you see. Oh, you get tired, you drink one. Full power. Get tired again, drink another. Full power. Yeah. Ah, so the effect is one-off. Exactly. I can make as much as I want as long as I have the ingredients. But without them, it's back to good old sleeping. Doesn't make it any less amazing, sir. Okay, last question. What are the ingredients? Mostly fruit extract. It's important that there's no pulp. And preferably the kinds that get absorbed into your body easily. The important part of it is the magic inside the liquid, you see. Is that even considered alchemy, sir? Probably. As I was about to show my uncertainty to that last question, the other side of the door got a lot noisier. Looks like Czar and Betty were now here too. Sir Asley, if this goes on, the crops will be ruined. You must do something about the smoke. Immediately. Damn it, Asley. At first I thought you were just playing around. But this might actually hurt the kids downstairs. You know, you better fix this. You heard them, Master. NGH. Looks like I've still got a lot of things left to do. How do you even make fruit juice spew out that smoke in the first place, sir? Oh well, the smoke was just for show. You know, to set the mood. Afterward, I caught wind of Pochi going around talking smack about me behind my back. As for what she'd been saying, I swear he's such a fool. An eternal fool, I say. Well, just the usual stuff. Chapter 126. A new type of water magic? Noon. 9th day of the 4th month. 94th year of the War Demon calendar. Today was one of those occasional days when the Magic University was on break. Since Lena wanted some advice on her swift magic choices for the Blazing Dragon staff, we headed to the usual vacant lot west of Bylania. Pochi, on the other hand, was in town with Lala and Tifa, the latter in a bad mood for some reason, to shop for some staves. Perhaps Tifa didn't like the fact that she had to miss today's class? And the last one, Hellfire Wave. Oh, an advanced level fire spell. Nice. Phew. How was it, Sir Asley? High Cure, Hype Up, Speed Up and Hellfire Wave. All fit with Rapid Fire Augment and Velocity Augment Magecraft formulas. High Cure and Hellfire Wave are high up among the advanced level spells too. All those are good. But are you sure you don't want to use a wind spell instead? Aren't you most compatible with that element when it comes to attack spells? In response to my question, Lena put her index finger on her chin and proceeded to speak, as if she just remembered what she'd wanted to say. Well, I did consider that before, but when I tested the swift magic with spells of all 4 core elements, fire turned out to be the most efficient, you see? Really? Oh, makes sense. It's probably a reaction with the staff's special properties. It is the Blazing Dragon staff after all. Exactly as said on the tin, yes. Makes perfect sense that it would be most compatible with fire spells. And considering that, slotting in a fire spell for swift magic is indeed a nice choice. Since she's good at wind magic, there'd be no demerit for her to just draw up her circles too. But then wouldn't you want to use water spells, Sir Asley? Since it's the Torrent Dragon staff and all. Huh? Well, yeah. There's no water around here to use for the spells though. While I said that, Lena started to chuckle. Did I just say something strange? Is there something wrong, Lena? Tifa showed me some of your old research materials the other day. You see, I just remembered that thing. What did she mean by my research materials? Was there actually something among the materials I'd tossed out at Falltown that was funny to bring up now? As I thought that over, Lena raised her index finger and said, the thing that lets you invoke water spells without a water source, I mean. Yeah, that. I might have done that sort of research before. A rise storeroom. Pretty sure it's right here. Here it is. This is the one, right? Once I unrolled the parchment and showed it to Lena, she gave me a surprised look. It's very hard to read. You sure? This is a clean copy by Pochi though? The draft Tifa had on her should be way worse. At first I was going to bring that copy with me, but then Pochi got angry, so, yeah. Sometimes one must heave a sigh even though they don't want to. Now was one such example. So my point is, don't you meet all the criteria to try it out now, Sir Asley? In the list of criteria you need to fulfill here. 1. Incorporating Magecraft formulas into Magic Circle. 2. Maintaining balance. 3. Reducing information volume of items 1 and 2. 4. Drawing formula of item 3. Reducing information volume of item 4. Well, can't items 4 and 5 be used recursively? Yeah. Just apply the info reduction formula to the info reduction formula. It could theoretically go on forever. Wait a second. Could this work the same way as how I'd fixed the large-scale spell slotting problem? Sir Asley. Hey, wait. And regarding the water I'll need, I think there was something in this section. Yeah. The section that's plagued with Pochi's paw prints. Let's see here. Water magic spells PAW can only be PAW invoked to manipulate PAW pre-existing water. PAW if it is PAW possible to incorporate PAW. The formulas of PAW summoning Magecraft, PAW such as Ice PAW Horn, with the PAW addition of Fire, PAW magic formulas to PAW melt it, then PAW the water itself PAW would be easily PAW summonable. However, in PAW, order to add PAW, those to the PAW standard formulas, namely PAW quickening, materialization, movement, PAW and invocation, and PAW artifact would be PAW, essential to provide PAW enough bandwidth. But PAW, even with enough PAW bandwidth, digesting down PAW, the whole information PAW content and invoking PAW, it would still PAW prove incredibly difficult. PAW, written and edited by Pochi PAW. PAW. Why'd I even bring this with me? Even hard to read, ought to have its limits, damn it. Alright, better put my philosopher brain to work. Reconstructing the text is gonna take just a second. Water magic spells can only be invoked to manipulate pre-existing water. If it is possible to incorporate the formulas of ice summoning magecraft, such as Ice Horn, with the addition of fire magic formulas to melt it, then the water itself would be easily summonable. However, in order to add those to the standard formulas, namely quickening, materialization, movement, and invocation, an artifact would be essential to provide enough bandwidth. But even with enough bandwidth, digesting down the whole information content and invoking it would still prove incredibly difficult. Written and edited by Asley, I even replaced the signature part in my head. Take that, Pochi. And there we go. Build up a formula to regulate information, tie it up with the invocation formula, and then put the time limit termination magecraft into the whole package. I see. All right, as the old saying goes, strike while the iron is hot. Slay. Sir Asley. Wadash. Brought back to my senses by Lena's call, I realized that I've been sitting on the ground, holding research documents in both my hands. Are you all right? Why yeah. Come on, let's give it a try, Lena. Yes sir. I'll need to start with an ice magecraft. So my options here are Ice Horn, Frice a Boundary, and Absolute Zero, with the last being the most powerful. First, incorporate its formula, and then melt it down with a fire spell, so that comes after. But wait, do I even have a fire spell that can melt Absolute Zero? Aha! The large-scale spell Heaven's Vermilion should work. But the information volume, wait no it's fine. Just use time limit termination to force it in. Next, the quickening formula. Gotta go fast. Oh, I think the version used for Sharp Wind Asteriscos is a good one. Copy and paste that here. And here comes the materialization, movement and invocation formulas. I see. Let's tie them all together, and use time limit termination here. Alright, there we go. Now, here comes Rapid Fire Augment and Velocity Augment crafts. Hee. It's done. Then, I gave Lena a thumbs up, but you'll have to wait 15 minutes before you can use it. What do you mean? Oh, this is the perfect time. I'll teach you how to use large-scale spells as swift magic, Lena. The theory was simple enough, and Lena was able to understand the function of time limit termination, just from a brief explanation. She proceeded to unslot Hellfire Wave and High Cure from her Blazing Dragon Staff, replacing them with the large-scale spells Hell Inferno and Higher Cure Jest. She only put in 2 spells that needed time limit termination, so the processing was finished relatively quickly, enabling her to try it out now. High Cure Jest. And so a gentle wave of arcane energy poured down on me. Looks like it's a success. Wow. I never thought it would be this easy. I know, right? I know. I ought to make this known to more people. What with how useful it'll be when the Devil King is here. But it's still too early of a prototype for that. You're the only one I've taught it to so far, Lena. Wait, I'm the first one? Yeah. I'm planning to pass this on to Sir Gaston, Miss Irene, and Sir Billy pretty soon, though? I see. I'm the first to. Lena seemed quite happy as she put her hands on her cheeks. Whatever could have prompted that? Oh, so she's that happy to be the first to learn this cool stuff, huh? Right. I do get super happy whenever I've successfully invented a new magic spell. That's probably the same feeling. Still, these are large-scale spells we're dealing with, aren't they? The arcane energy consumption must be quite high, so I'll have to be careful not to shoot them willy-nilly. That's true. Considering Lena's arcane energy pool, she should have around 10 shots. It's fine and all for short-term battles, but she'll need to be super careful when we're up against the Devil King's army. I, on the other hand, probably could afford to use them more liberally. Oh, it's about time the spell in my torrent dragon staff is done processing. Ah, looks like this is going to be a completely new spell. So, have you decided on a name yet? Well, the water's coming out of the torrent dragon staff, and I've designed it to look like the thing that's all over the research documents, so. Design? Well, let's just give it a try. I'm going to shoot it at the forest of deep-rooted sins. Why yes, sir. It's just a deserted forest there. No casualties, no worries. Let's go. Pochi pat breath. Pochi. The torrent dragon staff materialized a giant dog paw stamp twice of ballad size. Composed completely of water, of course. It busted through the trees of the forest, showing no signs of even slowing down. The giant paw stamp ate into the forest of deep-rooted sins and drowned out the monster's screams. By the time it started to slow down, it distorted the earth, eventually destroying half of the forest and flooding the entire area. It was a hastily slapped-together prototype, yet it has already left its mark on the landscape. No way! Lena covered her mouth in awe, or rather mute amazement. Wow, that was awesome! Just as I was about to check my trembling hands, the mass of water exploded with an ear-rupturing shrill. The forest of deep-rooted sins just got wiped off the map. Chapter 127 Link Magic. Nope, I gotta change it. I mean, what's up with that destructive force? And the arcane energy consumption. It costs me 3 times the normal large-scale spell. This one must have used about 500, while the usual ones would eat up just 150 to 200 at most. I repeat, 3 times. And more importantly, it was absurdly strong. Wait, was that it? Was it because I put in all those powerful magic formulas? If that was the case, then I'd have to dial all of them down a level and make the effects more basic. But what was the cause of that explosion at the end? I was certain that I hadn't included any formula that could cause it. Could it be that the fire and ice spells were running in counter to each other? Well, to be more accurate, perhaps I should say water spell. But it was derived from an ice spell, so. Anyway, the end result might not seem so bad since it's an attack spell and all. But at least I'd need the explosion's timing to be better. I wouldn't be able to test it much, too, considering how dangerous it is and the damage it might cause. I could tweak it, but until there's a good place for carrying out extensive tests, it'd probably be better to keep this spell under wraps. Lena was dumbfounded all the way through the scene, but I managed to follow through, or not. I was confused as all hell as well. Eventually, just around the time Tifa and Lala were expected to show up, she finally calmed down, as apparent from how she heaved quite a heavy sigh, as if she had been holding her breath in for so long. I'll have to change the subject. I'd never been much of an expert on the destruction of nature after all. Anyway, that silver key accessory. You mean this key pendant? Yeah. So that's what it's called. Never knew that. Ha ha ha. So, you've always had it on? Lena nodded. She looked as if she was thinking of our past as she gripped the key pendant tightly in her hands. Since she had gifted it to me, I'd made sure to bring it back with me when I'd escaped jail time. I felt a completely different sense of value and attachment to it from the star rods I'd bought, so to speak. Yes, this might sound arbitrary, but I consider this to be a sort of connection between us, you see. A connection, huh? I definitely was happy that she'd bought one for me to form a matching pair. But I never knew that she'd thought about it that way. So that when you fight, well, no, through happy and fun times and sad and hard times as well, I might feel the emotions you feel like we're always together, and always together, you say. But I'm not forcing that idea on you or anything. It's just me thinking out loud. Yes, I know it's just in my head, but I do feel that it helps me to keep going. So, wanting to feel what I feel, huh? I do remember talking about that with Pochi in one of our late-night banters. But this doesn't feel as mundane as that time. Her words resounded in my heart, a magical resonance of emotions. Heartfelt words so humanly warm, the likes of which I'd never felt from Lena before. She was like a mother, or very similar, yet so different. I couldn't quite put my finger on what that actually meant to me. Well, no. I could come out with an answer. However, I really don't have the confidence to respond with feelings of my own. That's it. I don't know how I should express these insurmountable emotions. But at least I know, doesn't matter for whatever reason, that I would like to do something for her. As things are now, I can't bring myself to answer her emotions with my emotion. But I sure can resort to showing through action. Yes, it's the same as Lena's having her own ideas to herself. This is for me, but more importantly it's also for her. Would you mind letting me borrow your key pendant for a second? Lena, seeing my outstretched hand, reached back to the nape of her neck. Looks like she's trying to detach the chain, but is having difficulties doing so. NGH, huh? Yep, not coming off. I circled around to her back while cracking a wry smile, then held her hands down. Hadash. Stay still. Yes. Gah, here I go again. I really should have thought this though. Lena seemed quite embarrassed, as apparent from how she'd turned red all the way to the base of her neck. For the record, I am feeling embarrassed as well. Alright, it's off. Careful now. Why yes. I slowly sent the separated ends of the chain in front of Lena, for her to cup it up in her hands. Then I circled back around while also unlocking my pendant's leather strap lock. While Lena wondered what I would be doing, I held my free hand out to her, prompting her to put her key pendant on it. Alright, here goes. Link magic. I closed my eyes and recited the spell. The pendants in both my hands glowed faintly as they absorbed arcane energy from my body. The silver had anti-arcane properties, so I couldn't fit all that much energy into them. But considering how much I have now, I'll probably manage with half. By the time my palms were starting to heat up, which alerted Lena enough for her to take a closer look, the spell was done doing its thing. Phew. Sir Asley, this is? I've managed to put in a lot of arcane energy, so it should work even when we're far apart. Lena looked confused. Without saying a word, I passed the key pendant back to Lena, making sure that she was holding it firmly before continuing. Listen, Lena. The spell is called Link Magic, and it lets you temporarily draw from the arcane energy pool of another person. Link Magic, I nodded. I've fitted into the key pendant. There's no telling what manner of dangers you'll be facing from now on. So when you're in trouble, just apply a little bit of your arcane energy here and squeeze. Got it? Now it's like a lucky charm. Not that I'm telling you not to use it, but save it only for when you really need it. Alright? In my vain attempt at sounding cheerful, Lena cast her eyes down again. Both hands shaking, she tightly gripped her staff in one, and her key pendant in another. I could tell from a single glance that she was about to cry. She had always been so unused to receiving things from other people. Every time I'd given her something, she would cry out of sheer happiness. Happened with the star rod, happened with the blazing dragon staff. The latter technically was from Gaston, of course. But this time it felt a bit different. She wasn't crying purely tears of joy, but also, I've been getting all these things from you. Right. But you haven't even gotten anything from me. Maybe you're right. Nothing at all. Maybe you're right. Maybe. The statement was simple, yet I had to brace myself in saying each and every word. As vague and non-committal as they may come off as, I certainly put in all the resolve I had into them. As Lena kept trembling, I smiled and reached to pat her head. Yes. She wrung out an answer while gritting her teeth. That was what her voice sounded like. Yes, that was supposed to be the case, but I felt instead that she was smiling. That's all for now. But one day she'll surely be. Master's making Lena cry. Well then it looks like Pochi is asking for punishment. Still, from an outside perspective, it definitely would seem exactly as she'd said. Well, that's actually what's happening too, so she technically wasn't wrong. Wait, why is she here now? I swear, she's always got the worst timing ever. And not good. I need to prepare for battle. And by battle, I mean making excuses. I'm up against one opponent, Pochi. Hey Asley, you've got some nerve, doing that to her. Why is Betty here? Hey Asley, if my sister gets a single wrinkle on her face, you're dead meat. Yeah, even you. Reed man, you've already got your sword out. That's right, he'll take your left, and I'll pull from your right. Whoa, man is here too. You've got to be kidding me. Hee, I'll get his neck then. Bruce man. Not funny. Your neck is what's not funny, master. I don't even get what joke you're trying to make. So here's the thing. You should say something, Lena. At this rate, your brother and sister might actually kill me here. In response, Lena looked up at me. She'd already wiped off her tears. Her face looked innocent as ever, and somewhat mischievous, not unlike the face Pochi would occasionally put on. Maybe you're right. Oh, just look at my former student. She's got such a wonderful smile. Yeah, Lena. Hello. Maybe you're right. That's not what I dash. Maybe you're right. The statement was simple, yet I had to brace myself in hearing each and every word. And so my former student ran off, raising her arms in an exaggerated manner and shouting, "Big sis! Sir Asley's bullying me." In an instant, for no 5 pairs of eyes turned to lock onto me with extreme hostility. Seeing how Lena was running now, it was hard to believe that she'd been crying just moments ago. Those 5 glued their eyes on me. Well, their loss. Because the only thing I'm seeing now was Lena's smile. The absolute definitive 120% smile of an angel. And in her hands, she held the silver key pendant tightly, keeping it safe. At any rate, Asley. Master. Whatever can I do on my lonesome to save myself from these 5 on Lena's side? Chapter 128. A reunion with the Scarlet Blade. 8 o'clock in the afternoon. 18th day of the 4th month. 94th year of the War Demon calendar. Having received a message from Itsuki that Duncan had business with us, we decided to drop by the Adventurers Guild. It was quite rare for Duncan to call for someone specifically like this. I also happened to have some free time now despite being busy with many things, so I suppose the timing couldn't be any better. Once I got inside, I was met with yet another nostalgic individual. Oh, I see, Duncan must have called me here for this. Duncan shot me a wink upon noticing that I had realized what was up, so I ordered us some drinks before walking up to the individual in question. It's been a while, Sir Dallas. Here he was, Dallas the Scarlet Blade, a warrior who had fought alongside us against the Ogre King 2 years ago. He was a man of few words, the same as ever. But what wasn't the same was his elevated abilities, as was apparent from a single look. As a top-notch warrior who had been promoted to rank S at the same time as Bruce had, he looked as if he hadn't aged up, but rather became more refined as ever. Long time no see, sir. Hello, Pochi. Should I be jealous that his greeting to her was longer than the one I'd gotten? Well, I guess it didn't matter either way. Pochi didn't have a bad perception of Dallas, and that was what mattered. They did talk for a while on our way back from the battle back then, so that was probably how they'd gotten along. Why, gimme leg. Duncan served our order, but not before uttering a few words with creepy implications to Pochi. That was what I'd used to consider it as, anyway, but by now Pochi and I have gotten used to it. Dallas ignored that and held up his mug, prompting Pochi and me to look at each other, and then raise our cups to toast. It's strange. Despite how noisy the whole establishment around us was, it felt as if Dallas had created and was living in his own separate space. Not a party, but an individual. That was the impression I got. I had felt that to be the case for some time now, of course, but that didn't make it feel any less mysterious how he was like an unmixing color of paint. In a sense, I'd been living in isolation up until relatively recently, so perhaps that made me feel a level of affinity with him? So, I heard you've got yourselves into trouble again. Well, yes, a bit here and a bit there, I answered Dallas with a wry smile, prompting him to put down his mug and ponder things over. That was unexpected. Yes, unexpected was the right word. First of all, I would like to thank you for rescuing Ryan. You two were acquainted, sir? As I answered, I was agape with surprise, and so was Pochi. We turned to look at each other briefly, then turned back to Dallas. A long time ago, I see. Right, Ryan and Dallas should be around the same age. Pretty sure they weren't even a year apart, actually. But I'd never expected them to be acquainted. From how Dallas spoke, perhaps they'd been in the same party or something of the sort. Haven't been keeping up, but it's good to know that he's calmed down at some point at least. Are you sure we're still talking about Sir Ryan? Dallas said nothing and only nodded. The history of Ryan, the charismatic leading man of Falltown. I'll admit that I'm quite curious. However, I was sure that the topic at hand didn't have anything to do with that. Considering how Dallas wanted to meet with me specifically, and how he rarely came to Bylania in the first place, I would assume that it was relatively urgent. I was now all ready to listen, but then Dallas only raised his mug and took another drink. Didn't seem like he intended to start talking now. Pochi and I turned to look at each other again, then back at him. This isn't the right place. I see. As far as I could think of, the only places where we could meet were the Adventurers Guild and the Pochesley Agency though. Still, Duncan sending Itsuki to pass on the message to me meant that the meeting couldn't be at the agency. Was he avoiding something? I'd never set up a telepathic call with Dallas, so that was out too. In the end, the only option left was here at the guild. So here we were, but he still can't talk about it. Couldn't we have met up at some different place then? No, this place does have its advantages for that, particularly in how people were always around. Could it be that Dallas doesn't trust me? Doesn't seem to be the case, judging from his reaction. But he did seem to be quite cautious. And so for a while, we sat and drank with Dallas while talking over some trivial matters. Then at a certain point, he left the Adventurers Guild in somewhat of a hurry, but also without seeming suspicious. To others, it would seem as if he'd left for a walk to sober up. We followed him as he headed southeast. Oh, if I remember correctly, this direction leads to. Just a moment before I could say anything, Pochi spoke the same thing that I'd thought up instead. I knew it, the colorful food district. Yeah, looks like it. As we walked on, we found ourselves going through the silent part of town, and after that the number of lanterns on the wayside gradually increased, until it was as bright as daytime. The townscape was wrapped in a harmony of bright colors, appetizing food, the scent of women, and the prominent presence of effeminate men. So here we are at the colorful food district, and I'm already feeling the sharp stares from around me, though not to the point of feeling like murderous intent. But of course, what the district's got right now was two human trafficking competitors walking down their street, smack dab in enemy territory. This sort of reaction was fully expected. Dallas completely disregarded Pochi's words, and my reaction. Didn't even turn to respond to us. He only walked straight on ahead. The destination must be somewhere around here. Any second now. Convincing myself of that, I grabbed Pochi by her tail as we followed Dallas. It seemed that, as Tangelin had said, everyone had already realized that I had returned. Maybe I should have taken off my glasses today. Betty had said that I'd be fine if I'd done that. I'd tried taking them off for my first day back in town, and even the silver trio actually stopped recognizing me. So it probably worked out. Maybe they'd seen this current predicament of mine coming eventually. We're here. Dallas said just that, without any other explanation. The establishments to both our sides were swarming with customers, and full of beautiful women on the other side of their caged windows. In Dallas' front, however, was an unlit, practically abandoned shop. Well, no, straight up abandoned. No way it's still in business looking like that. The colorful food district naturally changed popular trends over time, so such establishments weren't exactly rare. But what could Dallas have to do with this kind of place? We took the back street between this building and the store to the right, and then went around to the backside. What seemed to be a dead end housed a dried-out well, blocked off with some old planks. Dallas proceeded to remove the planks and jump down the hole. We're supposed to go in here, sir? Well, Sir Dallas did already go on ahead, so I can tell that something's gonna jump at us from there. Yeah, like this one guy called Dallas the Scarlet Blade. Huh? How did you know? Because he just went in there, doggo. Well, see you on the other side. Oh, for the love of God. I'd rather not do this, but, oh well. I was the second to go down the well, and then Pochi followed. It wasn't as deep as I'd expected, only about 50 to 60 meters, so I managed to land on my feet. The air felt dense and somewhat lukewarm, quite dank and prominent with the trademark underground smell, too. Pochi, despite managing to land softly on my head and shoulders, was spooked by Dallas' firelit face and ended up toppling me over. Bah, so heavy. Wait, fire? So this isn't just some old well, huh? As it turned out, the place seemed more of a deliberately built underground passage. Candles stand like protuberances, all lit, had been built in equal intervals on the wall. Oh, so that's where the fire came from. What is this place? Just follow me. He's gonna leave you behind, master. Pochi whispered. Well, excuse me, princess. Am I not following him? We navigated through a complicated series of passages, went up a staircase along the way, then down again. Now this design would effectively deter the average trespasser. I bet I wouldn't be able to find my way back without Dallas' guidance. I still could manage with the teleportation spell, of course. Eventually, Dallas came to a stop at an unassuming location, with the path still going deeper in. Wait, is it just me? Or does the air here feel different? Oh, here we are. Pochi pointed her front paw at the wall, to which Dallas nodded. He then drew his sword and poked it into a small scratch on the wall, triggering the mechanism to open it up, complete with the rock friction noise. Ooh, hidden door. Cool. Look, master. A door. For the record, I did notice that before Pochi pointed it out. With Dallas urging me to go on ahead, I was rushed to the door by Pochi. Turning the heavy-looking metal doorknob, I then pulled it slowly. What's wrong, master? It's locked. You push it. I pushed it slowly. Chapter 129, A Hideout. And so the heavy metal door opened. The scene that welcomed me behind it was absolutely something I'd expect from an underground room. The voices around me, and the atmosphere of the place in general, very closely resembled that of the Adventurers Guild. What was different was the people present. I did recognize some faces as those I'd seen at the guild, but none that I would consider an acquaintance. The age range didn't seem that high either. No teenagers, at least from what I could see, but most were still in their early 20s. Despite how busy it looked, there was an air of calmness to the whole scene, like everyone having a sense of purpose. Why was there even a place like this under the colorful food district? With that thought in mind, I turned over my shoulder to Dallas. By now, Dallas already was right behind me, and Pochi was already sitting in one of the empty seats. Needless to say, I was surprised more by Pochi's lack of courtesy than Dallas having figuratively teleported behind me. Dallas peered into my face, and as we made eye contact, he seemed to have laughed a little. I knew we'd get a different reaction for every visitor. Really? I thought just about anyone would be surprised, though. Or by different. Did he mean they'd normally be more surprised than I was? Sir Dallas, what is this place? A hideout of the resistance. Wadash. Did I hear that right? I exclaimed, my voice initially quite loud by the surprise and gradually quieter by the following embarrassment. But Dallas made no fuss out of it. So, he's part of the resistance? Did that mean he was already acquainted with Warren back when we'd gone to fight the Ogre King? Did Dallas invite Warren into this? Wait, no, probably not. How about the other way around? No, I don't think that's it either. Pochi, we'll be bringing you some food. Go wait over there. Yes, sirree. Pochi shot me a wink. Dallas then turned to me and waved his hand. So he's telling me to leave Pochi and follow him inside. Asley, you're needed over here. I followed Dallas while looking off to my side at Pochi, who was now drooling all over the table. Feels like I'm getting strange looks around me, or rather, looks of interest trained on my back. I was very much aware that my face was recognizable among certain crowds, but this didn't feel like they were looking at me as that sort of famous character. The far end of the room had a door of the same design as the entrance. This time, Dallas was the one to push it open and step inside first. You are Mr. Asley. The voice was that of a woman who was sitting in a bulky leather swivel chair. Although she wasn't facing us, I could feel her intense aura of arcane energy practically striking me. Her voice was slightly crackled, but still sufficiently loud and clear. Yes. Once I replied after a single beat of delay, the woman slowly turned her chair around. Her light blue hair fluttered with the smoothness of water. Her face gave off an air of kindness, but I could tell from her eyes that she was scrutinizing me. From what I could gather with my first look, she should be 50, or at least somewhere close. Her gray eyes also served to make her under-eye circles all the more prominent. Good work, Dallas. Now please step aside. Yes, ma'am. Dallas bowed and stepped out of the room, closing the door behind him. A brief silence ensued, with her staring at me, and me avoiding all eye contact. See, I've never been good at looking strangers in the eyes. Besides, why is this stranger even staring at me anyway? Guess I'd been right to think that Warren wasn't the overall leader of the resistance. Considering how Dallas had said that this was a hideout, and how there was this super powerful woman sitting in the back room. This woman may very well be the leader. But why is she drawing up a circle? Did she just smile? Wind needle. Whoa. In reflex, I swiped away the needles with the torrent dragon staff. She was indeed smiling, while shooting at me. Wind lance. W at the dash. She's fast. Drawing up a circle for intermediate level spells, that quickly meant she was quite a high-leveled mage. I covered my hand in arcane energy and caught the attack, then terminated its effect. Wind tunnel. Wind blew violently in the sealed room, sending the books and parchment sheets flying in a whirl. Another troublesome spell, bah fine. I'll have to use it. Rise quadra boundary. In one go, I enveloped the wind in the boundary and compressed it down with arcane energy control, letting it die out. For a second, the woman narrowed her eyes. Bah! Was she trying to get me to use magecraft or something? Impressive. Why thank you. Not. What are you trying to pull? You looked pretty damn scary, smiling while shooting at me like that. Oh, I was having fun though. Yeah, just look at her grin. I'd be out of my mind if I didn't find that scary. Besides, she never even introduced herself. So I didn't even get her name despite her already knowing mine. Alright, I could just use my appraisal glasses. Name. Selah titles. Magic University graduate. Rank S. 6 Archmages. The Frostgazer, Great Mage, Supervisor. The Leader LV. 100 HP. 1,830 MP. 2,099 EXP. 9,999,999 Special Skills. Attack Magic Skilled, Support Magic Skilled, Recovery Magic Skilled. Feels like I've heard of her name before. I looked at her name again, and then the titles below it. That was when it hit me. You're one of the 6 Archmages. Selah the Frostgazer. The one and only. Selah continued to stare at me, never breaking her smile. The wrinkles that appeared in the corners of her eyes had a certain flair to them. Ugh, scary. What are you trying to pull? Oh, that was the Resistance's entrance exam. Didn't Dallas tell you? First I've heard of it. Perhaps he thought you could get through it without needing a warning, she said calmly, and then stood up from her chair, with her stare still on me. But this time, I could see her putting up a kind look in her eyes. Anyways, your performance was impressive, especially your drawing speed. Almost as good as Ishtar and Lloyd. I could say the same for you. If I'd been a second slower, I would have gotten hurt. Is that so? I thought you had a pretty wide margin for error, though? What made you think that? For one, you could take care to minimize the damage to this room. Selah shot me a wink, but in a different way that Pochi and Duncan would. Rather, the gesture reminded me of Warren. As the people in charge, they were quite similar, though ultimately sporting different styles. I was surprised by you being able to use magecraft too. So? When do you plan to officially join us? I never even said that I would join, did I? And no, I have no interest whatsoever. Hearing me say that, Selah returned with an expression of apparent confusion. That's strange. I thought Warren said that you fully intended to join our cause. He even vouched for your trustworthiness and everything. That little shit. I could vividly imagine him having his widest grin in history as he falsified that report. Not the case. At all. The most he said was that he had plans for me to potentially be part of the Army's activities. But even that was made up on the spot. Then we might have a problem here. For instance, I'm afraid I cannot let you leave, Mr. Asley. Selah cracked another smile. Now that's what I'd call a cold, penetrating grin. Oh, I see. Now her Frostgazer name makes sense. I will leave whenever I please, thank you very much. I'm sure I'm perfectly capable of doing that. Oh, then what about your familiar? She should be eating our drugged food right about now. What? Look, if anything happens to her, I'll dash. If you'll jump to conclusions, Then I'll do as well. Let's not go there, Damn this little. No, stop. I mustn't let her get her way. First I get out of here. Then I can just work something up from there. Just so you know, we have eyes everywhere. Where you live, your associates, even your adorable students, are all under our watch. Dash. Sayla's threat also came off as a sort of provocation. Upon hearing that, I might have also heard something snap in my head. Chapter 130, Asley's Explosion. Sayla's statement caused Asley to almost bust a vein. Asley's hair jolted up, and his eyes were bloodshot red. His bulging muscles, waves of arcane energy, and powerful murderous intent in his eyes, prompted Sayla to stop in her tracks. Anna, whoa. Hold on. Asley actually went berserk. Asley shattered the floor below his feet with every step, so loudly that the chatter outside the door immediately ceased. In an attempt to hold him back, Sayla put her hands forward and released her own arcane energy to create a shield. At the same time, Dallas opened the door behind Asley to get a look at the situation. Surprised by how dense the waves of incoming energy were, Sayla grew more and more worried. Dallas, despite being tasked with defending Sayla, stopped all movement upon simply seeing Asley's back. The energy, so strong that Dallas was immobilized and Sayla was visibly worried, made even the people behind Dallas scream. Although Sayla's wind magic had sent the books and parchment sheets in the room flying, Asley's rage-induced aura did not move them even a single inch. Then again, the arcane energy certainly was causing damage, as one could clearly hear creaking in the walls, the floor, and all the furniture. Sayla's energy shield, clashing with Asley's constant waves of energy, did not last long before it was crunched down in size. In the end, the shield had its arcane energy completely eliminated, and Sayla was overwhelmed by the wicked aura. What is this energy? Sayla's voice, barely wrung out against the choking pressure, went unheard by Asley. Asley, apparently absent-minded, held his hands forward. Seeing that, Sayla tried to take a defensive stance, but an instantaneous discharge of arcane energy lifted her up, and then flung her backwards, slamming her fixedly into the rock wall behind her. Ngh. Sayla coughed out blood, her face painted with an expression of anguish. At the same time, Dallas finally managed to move himself. He rushed in front of Asley, holding both his hands out to protect Sayla. He seemed to be struggling badly under the pressure as well. Dallas had reasons to not draw his sword. One was to make a point to Asley that he meant no harm. Another was because of what he'd realized by instinct, that even if he were to fight back, he would not fare well against Asley's current state. Asley, get a hold of yourself. Asley stopped for a brief moment upon hearing Dallas. His waves of arcane energy did not stop, however, and the whole resistance hideout continued to suffer under the pressure. Asley, stop. Dallas shouted at Asley again, but the latter would not calm down. The pressure now was so great that a few people started to faint. Dallas managed to take it head-on, and Sayla was still fully conscious, but they were not able to do anything more. Asley. Dallas breathing discomposed more as he kept shouting. Meanwhile, a figure casually walked up behind Asley, and then leaped onto his back. What are you doing, master? Your eyes are looking really creepy here. Pochi clung to Asley's shoulders and shouted into his ears, the usual routine. And look at your hair. It's all messed up. She pulled Asley's hair, and then crumpled it up. Dallas was taken aback, and Sayla was utterly horrified. Although Pochi was his familiar, her course of action was clearly out of line. The scene that unfolded before Dallas was that of Pochi approaching the explosive situation without worry, trash-talking, and then poking Asley's face with one of her nails. Ahahaha, you look like a roll of barbed wire. Laughter ensued. Asley's barbed wire hair reverted to silk thread, the discharged arcane energy returned into his body as if sucked in, and all creaking sounds ceased within the resistance hideout. The shaking pushed Pochi's nail deeper into Asley's face, causing a little stream of blood to flow down. It hurts, Pochi. Good morning, sir. It's night. Right. Asley put Pochi down on the ground, then turned to look at Sayla. Now out of the bloody human-shaped hole in the wall, Sayla looked with fear back at Asley, as she was helped by Dallas to sit back in her chair. How about you leave unrelated people out of this business? I will. Sayla cast her eyes down and apologized, her words sincere. Asley agreed to end it at that. Dallas stood himself in front of Asley again and bowed deeply. Sorry. That was entirely our fault. You didn't need to apologize for anything, Sir Dallas. Besides, this isn't the thing you needed to discuss, is it? Dallas raised his face and nodded. His actual business had come up before Sayla had even entered the picture. It was only coincidental that Sayla had received the message from Warren at around the same time, resulting in her wishing to meet with Asley, and in turn sending Dallas to invite him over. Asley, hearing Sayla's full explanation, came to the conclusion that Dallas had been sent because the latter was already acquainted with him. So how is he, Miss Sayla? He's good and all, but his power is far beyond what I can employ for the cause. Dallas, you agreed to bring him here knowing full well that this would happen, didn't you? I'm bad at explanations, you see. As the saying goes, one eyewitness over 100 hearsays. Anna, a lunatic, spotted. Dallas chuckled as he said so to Sayla, then proceeded to let Asley borrow his shoulders as he led the latter out of the room. Miss Sayla, Pochi called out to Sayla, prompting the latter's shoulders to slightly shudder. When you want something from my master, you'd be better off being upfront with him. I'll keep that in mind, and next time, I'll have Warren deal with things instead. He seems to be far more familiar with Mr. Asley, so. Oh, and thank you for the stomach drug. It's the best brand for dealing with fatty foods. It'll help you not feel bloated afterward. Pochi herself knew what the drug she had been given was. That was part of the reason why Sayla appreciated the advice that had been given to her. She had attempted to tie Asley down with an ultimately empty threat, and that had turned out horribly wrong for her. In the end, it was Pochi's intervention that had prevented things from going further off the rails. It went without saying that Sayla was grateful for that. The front room was now filled with quite a variety of reactions from the people. There were those who hid under tables, those who had their backs against the walls, those who avoided Asley as he walked by, those who drew their blades, those who were still unconscious. Pochi had a feast put on her table, with a little piece of cut-off paper stuck to one of its corners. It read, "Do not eat this meat." The letters were practically scribbles, which was understandable, since it had been written with the sauce of the steak in question. Considering how much sauce had been splattered around, and the time from Asley's enragement, to Sayla's panic, to Dallas' failed intervention, to Sayla's wall hug, to Dallas' semi-successful intervention, to Asley's refusal to stop, one would be able to deduce that Pochi had been wolfing down her meal, as much as she could, up until the last second. Pochi, running past Asley and Dallas, sat in her chair, and proceeded to start eating again. Pochi probably had a pre-planned order of what she gulped down for her meals, as apparent from how she bit into the steak, as if refitting her teeth into the half-chewed teeth marks. So tasty. Asley gave Pochi's head a single light stroke before sitting in the chair beside her. From the look on his face, he had already calmed down, without a shred of anger remaining. Following the pair, Dallas sat down in the chair opposite to them. With everyone else utterly silent, only Pochi's eating noises resounded through the room. This also meant that if the supposedly important discussion was to start now, everyone present would hear it loud and clear. But of course, if they cared about that now, they would have gone somewhere else instead. Since Dallas had decided to bring his guests here, surely there would be no issue. So what was the thing you wanted to discuss, sir? You might want to reconsider associating yourself with this one person. A mutual acquaintance of ours, in fact. You mean I know them as well? I don't think I'm acquainted with any dangerous people, though? Asley asked while grabbing for a cloth to wipe the juice Pochi had spilled on the table. Dallas answered with silence, showing apparent hesitation to say any more. The deadlock continued until the cloth was completely soaked, thus depriving it of its usefulness for wiping, the moment at which Dallas put on a grave expression and opened his mouth. Billy the Holy Healer. The unexpected name drop prompted Asley to stop his hands, and Pochi to stop her chewing. Dallas then proceeded to elaborate on his story. Chapter 131 Chimera. What did he mean I need to stop associating with Billy? I do recall that back when we'd first met, Dallas had said he was acquainted with Billy, but what's going on here? Sir Billy is a good person. Pochi was quite fond of Billy, so her response was understandable. It was all about food and snacks, sure, but that didn't change Billy's gestures of goodwill toward her. He's a lover of all animals ever since way back in the day. So much so that he'd spent personal assets to establish and maintain a small animal shelter out of town. Shouldn't that be a good thing? I'd never known that was a thing. Billy never bought it up during the few recovery magic extra classes I'd had with him. I know Pochi isn't so happy now, but it shouldn't hurt to hear Dallas' story to the end. So I waited to hear the rest, and Dallas went straight to the meat of it. Here's the thing. I've recently discovered that it was just a front. Do you mean an incident occurred that prompted you to think that? Dallas nodded. Just the other day, in fact. I took a request to slay some monsters in the outskirts of Radiata, near the shelter. After I was done, I decided to drop by the place. Particularly because I'd heard that Billy was going to Radiata at that time, you see. Just wanted to see an old friend, nothing grand. I bet there were lots of happy animals living there. From what I'd managed to see with a peek above the walls, that was the case, yes. He peeked in. He couldn't have just looked? Why would you do that, Sir Dallas? For one, the walls were incredibly tall and thick. And on the way, I started seeing more dead animals the closer I got to the shelter. Have you heard? That usually means unnatural killing. More meat than all the monsters in the area can eat. Pochi piped down, her anger slightly abated. Well, I didn't quite get that at the time, so I was on guard the whole time I approached the place. The facility was separated between the main building, the breeding space, and the main shelter. When I looked into the breeding space, I thought I was just being paranoid. But then, I saw Billy, and he had a brown spotted wolf with him. Its appearance was unusual, so I definitely remembered right. Billy took it from the shelter to the main building. What disturbed me was his face. He had this perpetual creepy grin on him. Pochi swallowed a lump in her throat. Right, I'd never seen Billy acting like that, let alone heard anything of the sort. The facility had security guards, so I couldn't stay for long. In the end, I turned in my quest and stayed in Radiata for a few days, but never got to meet Billy during that time. So this suspicion only came from Sir Billy's grin then? Dallas shook his head. I inclined my head in doubt, wondering what more could there be. On my way here from Radiata, I was attacked by a bizarre monster. Well, technically a beast, I suppose. So to rephrase that, you mean a brown spotted wolf, except it had 3 heads. Looked strange, somewhat similar to the A-ranked Kerberos, but also very different. Strong and savage, too. Not one bit weaker compared to the Kerberos itself. I only realized when I'd killed it that it was just a beast. But in my book, that thing was a monster. Was probably what he wanted to say. A 3-headed wolf. Pochi looked as if she'd recalled something. Probably the same thing I'm thinking of. It was one of those things we'd researched together back in the day. In fact, so that was to be expected. My suspicion stemmed from how the strange beast I fought looked similar to the wolf Billy had with him. That's all there is to the story. I closed my eyes and searched my memories for the exact details. It should be around 300 or 400 years ago. Left and right heads forcefully stitched onto the center neck, or their furs were fresher compared to the rest of the body. Does either of those apply? Dallas nodded. I'd figured that was the case, so after I killed it, I made sure to check the necklines. No stitches, but as you said, the left and right heads had different fur. How did you know? Master. Pochi turned around and called me. She looked quite sad, which is understandable, considering how well she got along with the man in question. I nodded to affirm Pochi of her assumption. Yeah, it's Chimera. A high-leveled implementation at that. Chimera? That sounded different. Don't you mean Chimera? Chimera-type monsters have been around for a long time, but Chimera refers to a method of artificially creating monsters. Well, beasts. The part with the stitches I referred to earlier is a result of installing the heads of other creatures onto the body, while the fur part is, well, this is only one possibility. but I'd say it's from new heads being grown via mutation over the span of several days. Pochi was showing quite a complex mixture of emotions on her face. With Billy being the nation's authority on recovery magic, Pochi knew full well that he was capable of doing this. It's most likely that all three heads had exactly the same face. Did they? They did. Installing heads have a high rate of failure due to incompatibilities and the like, so it's extremely difficult to put the method to practical use. The case of growing, however, is very much possible if the developer has the right spells and enough arcane energy to do so. The former case, if successful, would have resulted in a stronger chimera beast than the one Dallas had fought. Since the chances of failure were higher, a larger number of experiments were needed as well. For the latter case, it was relatively easy to succeed as long as the main body was kept intact, and if one had the appropriate recovery magic, arcane energy, and other necessary technical knowledge. But this method would also result in the main body being badly damaged. The process required one to repeatedly injure the target beast while imprinting the right memes into its brain. For instance, you need to evolve and grow a new head. The beast's flesh from the neckline to its shoulders would then need to be cut open, then applied with arcane energy to induce its mutation, certain foreign substances to influence the new growth of its bones, and lastly, kept alive and restored with recovery spells. If that ended up with the neck bones branching out, then the chances of success from there were high. Considering how good Billy was with his recovery magic, and how much arcane energy he had. After getting the simplified explanations, Dallas groaned to himself as he pondered it over. I waited for his response. Do you think it's really him? I gave him an honest answer that I could derive from all the available information. I'm 80% sure. All right. I'll be investigating more into this. And sorry for what happened today. Feel free to come here again later if need be. Only because you're here, Sir Dallas. I'll spare you the inconvenience, and show up at the Potchesley agency next time then. It sounds like he isn't staying in this town long term. So even though the Resistance's hideout is here, Dallas is still wandering around all over the nation, huh? Once we left, Pochi wasn't quite herself. Well, no. With the story she'd heard, it was understandable that she would be quite downhearted. After we were out of the colorful food district, I put my hand of Pochi's head and explained to her. Chimera aren't monsters, but beasts that listen to humans' commands. This could mean they are preparing this as their force of arms. What do you mean? Black Magecraft can't control powerful monsters, so they are creating what they can control. That's the conclusion I could draw from the story. See, from what Sir Dallas told us, Sir Billy has always been fond of animals. It's been 10 or so years since he'd moved all the animals under his care to the shelter, so something about him must have changed at around that time. Maybe by someone. You mean, he's being controlled? Well, we'll have to wait for Sir Dallas' future reports to be sure. Pochi's expression brightened up, her broad smile showing her shining fangs. All right. If I find out who's controlling Sir Billy, I'm gonna beat them up real good. She stood on her hinds and emulated boxers' punches with her front legs. Though that could be considered a battle-ready stance, for some reason, she was also wagging her tail. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.